Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror in detail. Today we're going to share demonic encounter horror stories. First story. I think I accidentally summoned a demon. This is a giant wall of text. Please forgive me. A little bit of backstory/context. Despite being raised Christian, I've always been superstitious, believe in ghosts, demons, all that jazz. Yes, the majority of Christians do support the belief of demons, but my parents always taught me that they can't get into contact with me, since it's a Christian household. I've never been truly Christian. I consider myself more agnostic. Anyway, I was a pretty edgy kid. I loved creepypastas. I was convinced old Jeff was going to marry me. Horror movies were my favorite. I loved basically anything that could be considered weird or creepy. Me, at 12, I had a strange obsession with dolls, especially rag dolls. One day, I had stayed home from school, and I had just gotten a sewing machine a few weeks beforehand. So I decided, hey, rag dolls are creepy. Let's make one. Looking back, that was a bad idea. I used my sewing machine to make the main parts of the doll and hand-sewed small details like the eyes. Bad idea. I accidentally pricked my finger while hand-sewing the hole that I put the stuffing in, and I got a small bit of blood inside the doll. Did I mention that this was a bad idea? Skip a year forward, I'm even edgier than before, and to top it all off, I'm an angsty 8th grader. At this point, I've thoroughly convinced myself that there's a spirit of some sort living in my room. I had no proof, but I could just feel that there was something there. At the time, I shared a room with my brother, but he doesn't believe in spirits, so I never brought it up to him. The most that had ever happened, besides the feeling of being watched, was one night when the house was absolutely silent. I could hear distinct breathing. And it wasn't my brother. His bed was too far away for it to be that loud. And in my ear. It wasn't mine either. It wasn't matching up. There was something standing over my bed and breathing on me. I could feel eyes staring at me. I can't explain it well, but I've always been able to tell when there's something or someone else in the same room as me. I froze. I felt like if I moved, it would get pissed off. I don't know. After about 5 minutes, it just stopped. I was too freaked out to sleep that night. Another year later, I'm 14, still edgy and angsty, but out of my creepypasta phase, and I've forgotten about the supposed spirit in my room. My family and I are getting ready to move across town as our house had gone into foreclosure. This spirit, I still don't know what it was, apparently wasn't too happy that we were moving. It started making itself known. In mine and my brother's bedroom, we had a bathroom, but it wasn't used very often for whatever reason. The head of my bed was against the wall right next to the bathroom. We kept the door closed at night. Don't really remember why. Anyway, one night, I don't sleep very well at night. I hear the door opening slowly. I think it's just my brother, but then I remember he's at a friend's house. Parents, maybe? No, I would have heard the bedroom door open. My heart stops in my throat as I hear that breathing again. It's raspier than the first time I heard it, and it sounds like it's strained or forced. I cup my hands over my ears and whisper, "Go away," over and over until I hear nothing but myself. A month later, this spirit has been messing with me. It moves things. I've seen it happen. I set my iPod down, turn around, and then look back at it, and it's gone. Sometimes it's on the floor. Sometimes it's in my drawer. Other times, it's in an entirely different room. At this point, I'm just tired of this thing, and I try to befriend it as well. To quote myself a few paragraphs ago, bad idea. I ask its name. You know how this goes. I hear a raspy, inhumane voice whisper at him. I think, well, there really is something in here. Good thing I'm moving. I thought wrong. About 3 months later, things have been moving in my room as I'm just sitting there. I hear whispers, I lose things. The usual paranormal. Except we've moved, and things are still happening. Not to mention, I know for a fact I left that rag doll I mentioned at our old house. 2 days later, it's in my drawer. Another 2 days later, and my mom dies in her sleep. Yes, less than a week after we moved into our new place, my mom dies. Now, this wasn't entirely unexpected, as she was in poor health and was extremely overweight. But it was still startling and upsetting, especially since I was only 14. I won't go into details as her passing was less than 2 years ago, and it's not really important to this story. So, as I'm trying to deal with the death of my mom, weird shit keeps happening. The usual losing things, things moving, the occasional object being thrown across my room. But it gets stranger. The main reason why I no longer have my bed on a bed frame is this. I'm trying to sleep one night, and I hear something under my bed. I think maybe one of my dogs just managed to get in my room or something. They had a habit of doing that. So I go to check, and I shit you not, I see a face. And it's not like a human face, but I can tell it's something's face. It's pitch black under my bed, but I can still make out the outline of this thing's face. The face itself was black as well, and yet I could still see it. I saw dark red eyes that were staring right at mine, and I could vaguely make out a nose. I didn't stay in my room long enough to see a mouth. I grabbed my phone and booked it out of there and opted to sleep in the bathroom since that was the only room I felt safe. After that, I refused to have my bed above the floor, and I slept with the light on. At this point, I had basically dropped out of school. I've had depression and anxiety my whole life, and my mom passing only a week and a half before I started high school kind of made that worse. So since then, I'm home alone pretty much all the time, except for at night. Weird shit is still happening, but it's not just in my room anymore. I would hear things move in my kitchen and my dad's room when I was home alone. I brushed it off as just the house settling. I didn't want to deal with this anymore. I was tired, to say the least. But this thing still stayed around me. It seemed to like me almost, and I guess I kind of liked it. Since I had dropped out of school, I had little to no socialization aside from my brother and dad. I spoke to whatever this thing was. Adam, I guess we'll call it since that's what it told me its name was. Adam rarely spoke, but I talked to it a lot. I genuinely felt like it listened and cared. Maybe I was just lonely, but its presence was no longer a hostile one. It felt comforting almost. Anyway, bad idea to make friends with a spirit. Skip to 2 years later, aka now. I'm 16, I'm in a new house, and once again, that rag doll followed me despite leaving it in our previous house. At this point, I just kind of accept whatever happens. A box moves across my room. I usually just sigh or say something along the lines of, "Hey, buddy, do you think you could just..." Nah, that would be great. I don't hear its voice anymore, but I know it's still there. I had a friend visit a few months ago, and he stayed with me for nearly 2 months. We'll call him C. C is one of my best friends, and he's extremely spiritual and superstitious. Right off the bat, he could tell there was something not human in our house. He said he didn't know how he felt about it, so he decided to assume it was a neutral presence. About halfway into his visit, he wakes up in the middle of the night. I'm still up, as usual, still have issues sleeping at night. And he's just scared out of his mind. He's not one to be scared by anything. He's hyperventilating, and he's looking around my room rapidly, and he won't respond to me. He puts his hands over his ears and curls up into a ball, and he's mumbling to himself. I had no idea what's going on, so I just pull him close to me and basically cradle him as he's freaking out. Eventually, he's able to form coherent sentences, and he tells me he won't stop talking, he won't stop. He won't stop saying my name. And then he just trails off into whispers of "shut up. Leave me alone. Go away." I still had no idea what was going on. I just keep hugging him and telling him that he's going to be okay and that it's only us here. And just like that, he goes back to sleep. I asked him about it in the morning, and he said there was some weird, raspy voice whispering his name, and it just wouldn't stop. Huh, weird. About a week later, we're both asleep, and a loud crash wakes us up. I have those plastic drawers you can get at Walmart next to my bed, and it's just knocked over. And it's not like one of us knocked it over in our sleep, or something on top of it tipped it over. You can tell it was pushed over by something. So, see, being closer to it than I am, he tries to put back in its place, but he freezes. He says he can feel something holding it down. We check, and there's absolutely no way something could be holding it down. After about 20 minutes of trying to put it back in place, we give up and go back to sleep, deciding to deal with it in the morning. When we wake up, it's back in place. I'm tired. He's tired. We both don't want to deal with this thing anymore. It's been about 5 months since he left, and nothing really significant has happened since. Not sure what to think at this point. I don't even know what this thing was in the first place. Any ideas? Second story. Everybody has a demon. Everybody has a demon. Most people just don't know it. I do. I can see them. They perch on your shoulders or ride piggyback, whispering in your ear. Sometimes they speak words soothing and sickly sweet, other times bitter and venomous. Some people's demons are tiny and innocuous, even cute. Others are brutes, stupid, foul, slovenly. Some are, in a word, abominations, twisted, malevolent perversions who revel in misery and suffering. Those are the worst kind. You can tell a lot about a person by looking at their demon. My demon's name is Jack. Well, that's what I call him anyways. They never tell you their real names, and that's okay by me. Jack fits him just fine. I've known Jack for as long as I can remember, my whole life, actually. He's always been around. When I was lonely, Jack would play with me. When I was sad, Jack would crack jokes to make me laugh. When I was bored, Jack would tell stories. Jack always knew the right things to say. When I was young, I thought my parents could see him too. They called Jack my imaginary friend, and my mother would tell the other moms about how creative her son, Kevin, is. He has such a vivid imagination. Sometimes they would ask me questions about Jack, or they would ask him questions about me. He would always answer, but I began to notice something strange. They never seemed to react quite right. It was like they weren't actually hearing him. They'd become smug and condescending and say things like, "I think Jack is telling you to finish your green beans. Don't you think so, honey?" I'd think they were ignoring Jack on purpose, and then I'd get frustrated and start to cry. I was 9 when I finally figured it out. They really couldn't see him. They were just playing along. They were the ones pretending. Not me. They were fools. I knew Jack was real as anyone else. So I talk about him all the time, to my parents, my teachers, the kids at school, to anyone who'd listen. I try to convince them that Jack was real. That's when it stopped being cute and my parents started to worry about me. Sometimes at night, I'd lay in bed listening to them talking in the kitchen. My mother would get weepy and my father would speak quiet, soothing words like balm. He'd say things like, "It's just a phase. He'll grow out of it. All kids go through this. It just lasts longer for some." I'd lay there in bed with Jack by my side, comforting me. "Why can't they see you?" I'd ask. "You have a gift. A special gift." "They don't," Jack would say, smiling. "Well, why don't they believe me? I'm their son. Why do they think I'd lie? That's just the way people are. You're very young, Kevin. You have so much to learn about the world. But I'll always be here for you, Kevin. You can count on me. I'll always be here for you." Around this time, I started getting into trouble at school. The other kids would make fun of me when I talked about Jack. They called me Crazy Kevin and Baby Boy Kevy Weavy, and they would laugh and punch the air and tell me they were beating Jack up. They would taunt me and push me down, and when I tried to defend myself, I would get in trouble. Kids can be so cruel to one another, and the teachers weren't much better. They'd tell me, "Well, stop talking about your imaginary friend, and the other kids will leave you alone." So I did. I wasn't a dumb kid. I knew they were making fun of me because I was different. They didn't have imaginary friends, and I did. And even though I knew Jack was real, no one else thought he was. Imaginary friends weren't supposed to be real. The unknown scared them. I scared them. So I stopped talking about Jack and stopped talking to Jack. I ignored him, pretended he wasn't real. Jack got angry. Sometimes at night, he would knock things over or throw things around my room to get my attention. Sometimes he'd break things in my house, and I'd get blamed. Even worse, he started appearing in my dreams, tying me up and torturing me in strange primitive rituals, chanting and carving esoteric symbols into my flesh. I'd wake in a cold sweat, mind reeling. Jack would be hovering above my bed, quietly watching as I slept. Finally, when I couldn't stand the torment anymore, I started talking to him again, in whispers and only late at night while the rest of the house slept. I explained the situation to him, about my parents, my teachers, the kids at school. When I told him, he smiled. He understood. Jack always understood. He told me that everybody has a demon, just like me. They just can't see it. They don't know it exists. He told me I was special, that I had a gift. I was still doubtful, but Jack wasn't upset. He told me I was so special that he was going to get me another gift, just to prove it. Then he disappeared. For the first time in my life, I was alone. I felt so scared, abandoned, and utterly alone. I was miserable. A week passed, and still no Jack. Was this how regular people lived out their lives? So lonely all the time. How do they stand it? Then I awoke one night, and he was there standing over my bed like he'd never left. I was so happy. "Where did you go, Jack?" I asked. "To get your gift, of course." "But where is it?" "You already have it," Jack answered. "But where? You didn't give me anything." "Shh, quiet, child. It will all make sense in the morning. Go to sleep now, Kevin. Go to sleep, child." He sang me a lullaby in some ancient tongue as I drifted off. I awoke the next morning as excited as a kid on Christmas, ready to run out of my bedroom and see my new gift. But Jack grabbed me by the arm and spoke to me sternly. "You must make a promise to me, Kevin. Whatever you see out there, you must promise never to tell anyone about it. You must never speak of it aloud. Otherwise, your gift will disappear. Otherwise, I will disappear." I promised. "Promise me 3 times," Jack said. So I did. "You've promised me thrice, never to speak of what you see. Do not forget your promise, Kevin." We walked into the kitchen, and I stopped dead in my tracks. There at the breakfast table sat my mother and father. On each of their shoulders perched a demon. On my mother sat a large puffy creature, a mix between a bunny rabbit and a giant marshmallow, but with huge doughy eyes and long silver fangs. On my father sat a long, skinny worm-like creature with hollow eyes and the face of a bat. It was blue and translucent like ice. A cloud of steam rose from its body. Its tail was coiled around my father's neck. I yelped in surprise, and 8 eyes turned towards me, for human and for demonic. I made some excuse to my parents, which calmed them down, but the demons stared at me wide-eyed. At first I thought they were angry, but then I recognized that they were actually afraid. Afraid of me. Afraid that I could see them. The bat snake hissed something I couldn't understand, but Jack barked back in a gruff, guttural language which echoed in our tiny kitchen. My parents' demons cowered before him submissively. From that day forward, I saw them everywhere I went. It was scary to be sure, but at least I knew I wasn't the only one. Everybody has a demon. Still, it could be overwhelming. There were so many, and they all knew that I knew. They would say things to me, horrible things. They would brag about all the twisted and perverted acts they had convinced their people to commit. They would tell me about their people's evil thoughts and dark secrets. The demons delighted in recounting these tales in graphic detail. Sometimes Jack would stop them, but sometimes he wouldn't, or even worse, he couldn't. Some of them were scarier than Jack, stronger than Jack, and there was nothing he could do. Sometimes I would catch an evil glint in Jack's eyes, and I could tell that he was enjoying hearing about all the wicked and foul deeds other demons had convinced their people to do. He almost seemed jealous. It became too much. I had to make some changes. I would walk to school instead of riding the bus. I began avoiding crowds and started spending my free time alone in my room or out hiking in the woods, but it was no use. I started falling behind in school. It was impossible to concentrate in class with all those demons glaring at me, whispering to me, laughing at me. I told Jack about this, but he shrugged it off. He reminded me that this was a gift, that I was special. He promised me that one day I would be glad I had it. I trusted him. Jack was always there for me. Jack always took care of me. Sometimes I felt afraid. I could always tell who the really bad people were by the size and nastiness of their demon. I could see all the liars, the adulterers, the rapists, the murderers, and the child molesters. They walked the streets, mingling in secret with the good people and the normal people, like wolves among sheep, and nobody knew but me. You'd be surprised just how many of them there are, and there was nothing I could do about it. At least, not yet. That changed in the 10th grade when I met Elijah. Elijah was a bully, and he didn't try to hide it. He was a fat, ugly, hulking slab of a boy. He was stupid too, book stupid, or willfully ignorant at the very least. But when it came to bullying, he was a genius. He had an uncanny ability to find a person's greatest joy in life and turn it against them. He seemed to make it his personal mission to torment the smaller, smarter, weaker, and more introverted kids, of which I was one. He also had one of the nastiest demons I'd ever seen. It was a massive hippopotamus-looking beast with twisted horns and breath like the grave. It lay across his shoulders, making Elijah slouch when he walked. The popular kids ignored most of us, but they despised Elijah. In his mind, that was our fault, and he made sure that we paid for it. He loved to trip kids in the hallway, knock their books out of their hands, snap girls' bras, fire spitballs in class, and generally make our lives a living hell. Elijah's specialty was stealing lunches, and he did it with aplomb. I never once saw him buy a lunch or bring his own. He'd simply go from table to table taking what he wanted from the nerds. He always made sure to take my milk. I don't even think he liked it, but he knew that I liked it. So he'd take it, chug it down, and throw the empty carton in my face, laughing all the while. Jack started whispering things to me, telling me what a horrible person Elijah was, telling me all the nasty things he did when he was alone, telling me how he reveled in torturing and killing people's pets out in the woods, telling me about the things he would do to his little sister late at night, telling me all the horrible things he would do in the future, telling me that if Elijah died, no one would miss him. I tried to ignore him, but the longer it went on, the more sense Jack seemed to make. The final straw came one day when Elijah caught me alone in the bathroom. I was standing at the urinal peeing when I heard the door open and heavy footsteps come up from behind. A look at this is Whittle crazy Kevy Weavy having a Whittle pee-pee break. He sneered. His breath was hot on my neck, like a foul breeze wafting from a garbage dump on a scorching summer day. I ignored him, trying to finish the task at hand as quickly as possible. "What's wrong, faggot? You deaf or something?" he asked. I continued ignoring him. Big mistake. He kicked me hard on the backpack, smashing my chest into the urinal and my face into the concrete wall. I saw stars and fell to the ground, my members still in hand, still urinating. Oh no, look at that. Whittle Kevy fell down and wet himself. "Here, let me help you with that." I lay on the ground in a daze and heard pants unzipping somewhere above me. Then a warm, putrid stream was pouring over my backpack and down my legs, and Elijah was laughing. I covered my head and pretended I was somewhere else. When it was over, I heard the door slam shut, and from the hallway, Elijah yelling, "Hey, everybody, check it out. Crazy Kevin pissed himself." I looked up, and there was my demon, Jack. He was staring at me with a smirk on his face. "Okay, you win. Tell me what I have to do." Jack's smile widened. "Easy," he said. "Switch to almond milk." For the next 2 weeks, I packed my lunch with almond milk instead of my regular 2%. It tasted disgusting, but I hardly ever got to drink it anyways. Elijah stole it from me every single day without fail, and he really seemed to enjoy the taste. Then one day after school, a knock came at my door. It was a stranger, disheveled and wild-eyed, dressed in a cheap suit. His demon was a snake, red as venous blood, venom dripping from its maw. He didn't say a word, just handed me a crumpled paper bag and walked away. I opened the bag and pulled out a clear vial with a strip of masking tape on the side. On the masking tape, in clear black Sharpie marker, one single word was written. Cyanide. Jack was grinning again. "Tastes like almond," he whispered. I mixed it into my milk for tomorrow's lunch, and the next day, I ditched the empty vial in a dumpster on my way to school. A few minutes after drinking my milk, Elijah was convulsing on the floor. I sat and watched, casually munching on a taco. A few minutes after that, he was dead. I wasn't sad. I actually felt good, better than I had in a long time. The cause of death was determined to be cerebral hypoxia, likely brought on by a stroke. Very few mourned his passing. I started missing more and more school, and a few months later, I dropped out completely. Not that I felt guilty or thought I might get caught. No way. I just had other more important work to do. I got a job in a rough part of the city, working in a crummy old book binding factory. The work was monotonous, but easy, and I soon saved up enough to buy a used car and rent a shitty studio apartment. I worked second shift at the factory from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. Most guys hated the hours, but I found them perfect for supporting my extracurricular activities, finding bad people, and killing them. My demon helped me. Jack was a real natural when it came to this. He helped me track down people with particularly nasty demons, and he'd tell me all the vile things they had done. We stalked them like hunters, learning their patterns and routines. Then he'd tell me the best way to kill them and how to get away with it. And I always got away with it. Pimps, rapists, drug dealers, child molesters, human traffickers, I did them all. Sometimes I made it look like an accident or a suicide or a robbery gone wrong. I beat, stabbed, strangled, shot, and drowned. I even pushed one fat guy on the third rail of the subway. He fried just like bacon, even smelled like it. Jack was always there for me, protecting me, making sure I got away with it. The best part was I never felt bad about it. Every person I killed was a wretched excuse for a human being. They deserved it. I was making the world a better place. Some might even say I was a hero. My conscience was clear. I slept like a baby. Killing people become normal, fun even. It was my hobby, and damn was I good at it. Eventually, I didn't even think about it anymore. I just did it. And that's when it all came unraveled. I was out on patrol one night, following the SUV of a mid-level drug dealer as he made his pickups. He must have made me, because as we came to an intersection, he slowed down and waited until the light was just changing from yellow to red, then floored the gas pedal. I tried to follow, but I must have been a second too late because a black BMW going the other way smashed into the side of my car, T-boning me and sending me spinning through the intersection. My head must have slammed into the steering wheel because I briefly lost consciousness. When I came to, my ears were ringing and stars danced before my eyes. Smoke drifted from the front of my car. Then I heard another noise, angry, screaming, and cursing. The owner of the BMW was striding towards me, a mountain of a man, face red, fists clenched, arms swinging, spittle flying from his mouth as he screamed. I lurched from my seat to face him, blood pouring from the gash on my forehead. Straddling the man's shoulders was one of the most horrific demons I had ever seen. It was huge, round, pale white, and bloated like a corpse. Pus oozed from 1,000 sores covering its corpulent body. It had no arms or legs. Instead, its entire mass was one giant face consisting of two tiny, beady black eyes and one enormous gaping mouth filled with row upon row of razor-sharp teeth. A forked tongue slithered snake-like through its fangs, flitting through the air, searching for a victim. I felt bile rising from my throat and fought it down. As the man surged towards me, I felt my rage rise, and I found myself thinking about Elijah, about all the times he had teased me, tormented me, humiliated me. I thought I heard a subtle whisper in my ear. Do it. My mind went blank. My vision went white around the edges. I felt like I was trapped behind my eyes watching, unable to control what was happening. The man was close, screaming in my face he meant to hurt me. I reached into my pocket. Then a flash of chrome in the streetlight. A hot torrent spraying me in the face. The man's eyes bulging with rage one moment, now rolling back into his skull. His body slumping to the ground, my knife buried in his throat. I looked to Jack for help, but he was laughing like a madman, and screeching something in that foul, ancient language. Realization set in. I'd done this man. Done him out in the open, at a city intersection, under a street light, with no planning or forethought, with no escape route, and no plan for cleanup. I turned on Jack in a panic. Are you just going to stand there laughing? Help me. Tell me what to do. How do I fix this? He was howling now. This one was all you. I had nothing to do with it. The man you just killed was a politician, a city councilman. Perhaps no less of a criminal than the pimps and gangbangers we normally kill, but this guy did it under the guise of law and order. I didn't make you do this, you chose this. I could almost feel my face go white as a ghost, and the world began to spin around me. I was stumbling towards a car, trying not to vomit, when I heard the noise behind me. BWP, bip bip, BWEP, followed by the scream of a siren. A cascade of red and blue light reflected off the windows of my car and the shops around me. The cruiser peeled out from the gas station across the intersection and rushed towards me. I sat in the interrogation room for hours. Jack stood next to me, smirking as the detectives worked me over. It all came out. They found everything. Enough evidence in my car and my apartment to tie me to dozens of murders. They said it would be a miracle if I got life in prison. The DA would go for the death penalty on this one for sure. Then they were laughing, and their demons were laughing, and Jack was laughing too. My court-appointed lawyer was a mousy man with thick glasses and mustard stains on his suit jacket. His demon was a small, skittering cockroach with the sallow face of a dead baby. He did not seem optimistic about my chances. The only hope to avoid the death penalty, he said, was to claim guilty but insane or mentally ill. Have you ever felt like you weren't in control of your actions? Have you ever heard voices in your head telling you to do things? Someone speaking to you? God, the devil, or demons? I pondered that for a moment. Jack was smiling, but his stare was black. Don't forget your promise, he whispered. You swore to me. You swore 3 times never to tell anyone. I remember, I replied. But this is no gift. It's a curse, and I'm glad to be through with you. My lawyer looked confused. Who are you talking to? My demon, I said. Everybody has a demon. Most people just can't see them. My demon is named Jack. And yes, he tells me to do things. Now I'm alone. Jack is gone. Gone forever. I sit here in a straitjacket within these 4 padded walls, waiting for my pills. Waiting to forget. I'll never see the sunshine again. Everybody has a demon. Everybody except me. Update. Some people are asking how this story was posted if the author is in a straitjacket. Perhaps I should have been more clear. He didn't actually write it. He dictated it. My name is George Orson, and I'm an orderly at the mental facility where Kevin is being held. Kevin is probably the most sane patient I've ever had, and it's a shame what the system has done to him. I actually support his work. He was making the world a better place, even if his means were a bit extreme. We spoke of his demons at length, and I thought his story needed to be told. To that end, I snuck an audio recorder into the facility and allowed Kevin to record his story, then transcribed it and posted it here. Third story. I got stuck with a pet demon. Do you know how scary these things are? I don't have to tell you how scared I was when I saw it. Like scared shitless. I didn't believe it was real at first. I thought maybe I was dreaming, but soon after I concluded that I was dealing with a creature that's out of this world. It isn't every day that you meet with intergalactic, demented creatures or demons from hell or whatever other evil places. I just found it on my couch one morning after I woke up. It was the oddest and scariest thing I've ever laid eyes on. When it saw me too, it started howling, raging like crazy, probably demanding food. The game was on, and it was watching it like it was the biggest football fan in the world. Then it started dragging its ass on the carpet, circling around me. The creature didn't attack me or anything. He seemed harmless, but still goddamn horrible to look at. It burped and started running through the living room until it went headfirst into the furniture, where it instantly blacked out. I honestly thought it was going to bite or kill me when it'd wake up, and my heart was racing inside my chest, drumming so hard like Tommy Lee was playing a solo in a Motley Crue live concert. I saw a letter on the carpet, and I wondered where or whom it was from, and of course, that's when the trouble started. Let me just write it here verbatim, and then I can go on with it. It was written in red ink, the letters were pulsating different shades, and I was pretty sure it had to be supernatural or the likes of that. Luckily, I took a photo before reading it all. You'll see why it was a good idea. Dear Jonathan, hello there. Sorry to send Fluffy out of the blue, but I am really busy at the moment, and I need you to take care of him for a few days. These are troubling times down here. I had a few guys who went overboard with drinking and gambling, and they haven't been doing their duty properly. I won't get into detail about how things here work as you're not eligible for a place yet. You're very close, though. I don't even want to start telling you what a crazy party we had on Halloween. We had stripping demon hookers, we smoked DMT, drank whiskey that was 1,000 years old, brewed right down here with our special recipe. Good times. I left one bottle in the fridge for you as well. Just be careful with drinking too much or you'll go insane. It kind of burns your throat like really bad, and if you do shots, you'll be able to breathe flames. No, not really. Joking, duh. I like bringing the lols. You know what I'm saying? Seriously, though, don't drink too much in a single day. If you have just a single on the rocks, you should be fine. If you actually do get drunk on it and see the dancing devils, just ignore them. They're not real. Or are they? LOL, JK. Anyways, the reason I sent Fluffy over is that I have some business to attend here on Earth, and I can't leave him alone down there. The last time I did it, he ate my sidekick after he forgot to feed him on time. I can't carry him with me either because, well, I got important stuff to do that require my utmost attention. So, I have chosen you to watch for my dear old Fluffers. Ain't he great? Did he get a run headfirst into furniture by now? He does that when he's in a new environment. Speaking of, you have to feed time every Wednesday at 12 p.m. sharp. Not a minute earlier, not a minute later. I can't even highlight the importance of that. Even if he is a demon, he still eats the usual raw stuff. Raw hearts, raw kidneys, raw muscles. You know, everything meaty basically. Also, aside from that, he requires milk daily. Just a little. It doesn't matter when you'll give it to him. He will not refuse it. Just make sure it's not too much, otherwise he'll start barking and howling like crazy, and your neighbors will hear him, and you don't want that to happen. No bueno. He does like strawberries from time to time, but I recommend giving those only on Friday mornings, and only in moderation, like 2 or 3 of them, because he has a tendency of getting bloated and he'll start shitting all over your house. And you do not want that to happen because his shits are very acidic and will punch holes in the floor. You'll have a shitty floor. Get it? Anywho, I gotta bounce. I'll come and get Fluffy later this month. Do not get physically or verbally violent with him. Toodles. Yours truly, Sa. And P.S. If you're lucky and he likes you, he'll try and communicate with you. So if you ask him a yes or no question, he'll reply with 1 bark. I personally call them barks. For yes, 2 for no. Try it if you get the chance. PSS. If I see that you took good care of him, I'll make sure you get a big fat reward. If no, then, right after I finished reading it, the letters scrambled all by themselves into the face of a devil who smirked and winked at me right before vanishing. What, right? If you're like me, then you're wondering what the hell was going on. I just experienced 2 supernatural events in less than 5 minutes, and I didn't even think that there was a word in the dictionary to describe how scared I was. The tag on his collar was in the shape of a pink heart with the name Fluffy written on it, so I knew he didn't lie in the letter, but Fluffy? There is a huge discrepancy between the name and the actual way the creature looked like. Anyway, let me tell you a bit about Fluffy. God, I can't even say his name without my heart starting to rise up in my throat when I think I had to monster sit the devil's pet. The small creature was approximately 3 feet tall. It had purple fur all over its body and 2 crimson tusks, one longer than the other. Its eyes were a bright hue of glowing pink, and it had 3 legs and 4 arms. The arms had little claws on them, probably so that it could grab its food better. I still couldn't believe it, but I was sure it was real. I had to do what he said in the letter, and I had to take care of it. I found myself in a situation in which I've never thought I'd be. I decided to call it him, just like Satan wrote in his letter. Maybe that'd have helped. Fluffy was waking up, and I approached him. He was a bit scared. I could sense it, and when I tried to pet him on the head, he hissed at me. And that's when I noticed his dark orange tail that ended in an arrowhead tip. Classic demon stuff, right? I let out a whoa, and I saw his pink eyes and the tail both lit up in flames. The light was flickering while he focused on studying me and my moves. The tail was colored a bright, flamey orange that seemed to contrast the dark hue pretty damn well. I wonder how should I call him? Here, Fluffy. Here, little demon. Add a monster. Fluffy, want some milk? I asked. He started wagging his tail and ran towards my leg. Fortunately, the fire was gone and nothing burned. Does Satan gives you milk in hell? I asked again, and I heard him bark, sorta. It wasn't your traditional dog bark, more like 1,000 barks that echoed in one. Like could you imagine a creature of hell doing one? Yeah, that's exactly how it sounded. I took a bowl and put some milk in it, and he started drinking with his 3 tongues, and spikes started coming out from his back. That probably meant he liked it, I thought. I felt physically sick when I heard the sound of them erecting from under the flesh, and I started shivering with a fear that I'd never thought to experience ever in my life. I made his sleeping spot in the kitchen, and I tried to make it as comfortable and cozy as possible. After all, I didn't exactly know how to take care of a demon pet, except for the instructions I was given. Of course, I had to call in sick at work that morning because you don't get the chance every day to monster sit Satan's pet. Time passed on, and nothing significant happened on that Tuesday. Oh, luckily I remembered I had to get his food for the next day. There was a butcher's shop nearby, so it was a quick errand to run. I left him sleeping, and I wished that nothing bad would happen. I mean, Satan would have him trained by now, right? I bought like 20 pounds of chicken hearts, beef steaks, sirloins, and pork chops, and I put them in the freezer to make his lunch the next day. Then I heard my neighbor Gary blasting that stupid black metal shit and screaming vocals over the original song like a goddamn lunatic. Hey, retard, mind turning that down? I'm trying to rest. I angrily yelled. Up yours, you pussy. This is real music, not that pop shit you listen to, his wife Karen replied. Hey, F you both, you demented scumbags. I'm gonna call the cops if you don't turn that shit down, you hear me? I said, blood starting to boil inside my veins. 5 minutes later, the music stopped. Gary and Karen, what a lovely couple. I saw Fluffy standing behind me growling. Sorry, little guy. I shouldn't have yelled. It's that they piss me off sometimes with that stupid musical vomit. I told him, but he didn't stop growling. I moved past him, but he was still standing there, motionless, just growling in their direction. I assured him it's all right and told him to come with me, so I can give him some milk. He happily obliged. Night came, and I took Fluffy to bed. Even though he seemed to listen to every word, I said there was still some sort of darkness in the way he looked at me. They say that the eyes are windows to the soul, so maybe that's exactly what he was doing, trying to read my soul and see if I was fit to take care of him or not. Listen here, Fluffy. Your owner gave me strict rules and told me to be really careful about taking care of you. Okay? So please, don't start throwing tantrums in the middle of the night or become too curious about the neighborhood. Okay. I told him, hoping that maybe he could understand. Still, I was trembling with fear. Then, I remember what Satan said at the end of the letter. 1 bark for yes, 2 for no. Do you understand? I asked him again, and I heard him bark once. We were starting to get along pretty good, and I went to bed for the night. Lights out. Someone knocked on the front door. I got out of bed to see who could have been at that late hour in the night. Half asleep, I opened the door to see Gary enraged with madness, drunk as a skunk and high as a kite, holding a knife in his hand. You disrespected my woman. You piece of shit. No one talks to her like that, he said, his hands shaking. Listen, man, I'm sorry, all right? I shouldn't have said those things. I told him, hoping in resolving the conflict peacefully. Of course, that wasn't the case. You can't reason with madmen. His right fist connected with my face, and I was sent on the floor, start filling my vision. My upper lip split, and I felt blood entering my mouth. The salty and coppery taste was something I haven't felt since I was in a school fight as a kid. I tried to punch back, but I couldn't match his enormous size and strength. He put the knife to my throat and asked me if I want to die. I shook my head as tears started to form in my eyes. He was pressing the tip of the blade against my neck. I thought that the end would soon follow and I'd die at the hands of a drunken crack addict. He pocketed the knife and spat at my face, telling me that if I ever even look at them, I'd be dead. He ended by saying that if I call the cops, he'll kill me. Even if he were to be arrested, he'd hire a guy to kill me. Or worse, just cripple me. Make it look like an accident. I looked in the corner where the kitchen was and saw Fluffy standing there, just watching. I shook my head at him, not make a move. Then I pissed myself with fear, the warm liquid staining my pajama pants. Gary punched me one more time in the ribs, and I coughed blood on the floor. "You're disgusting, you stupid," he said, right before leaving, slamming the door on his way out. I didn't want to call the cops straight away because fear overtook all my other senses and the guy was batshit crazy. I mean, he could have come back any second, and I never trusted a person as erratic as him. Besides, I had to deal with more important things than my split lip and piss pants. I raised myself, patched my lip, and went to take a shower. I was in and out of sleep for a few hours when suddenly I jolted awake when I heard the front door slamming shut. Someone was trying to rob me. I had to deal with a demon, a murderous neighbor, and now a burglar. Or maybe it was Gary who changed his mind and wanted to finish me off for good. Shit, shit, S-H-I-T. I thought. I didn't have anything to defend myself with, so I just took a pencil from my desk so I could stab the motherfucker in the eye if push came to shove. I checked the living room, nothing. I looked around, nothing. I went to the kitchen and turned on the lights. Fluffy was standing there with a human arm in his mouth, while his tusks were dripping blood. I recognized Gary's tattoos on it before I stumbled and fell down on the floor. Fluffy was different. He was bigger in size, and now there were spikes all over him, and they dripped with blood too. He started wagging his tail and dropped the arm at my feet, barking at me to take it. Then he pushed it again with his tusks towards me. "Oh no, Fluffy. What the hell did you do?" I yelled. Big mistake, because his eyes and tail lit up again. "Sorry for yelling. Didn't mean to, it's just... I'm scared and you shouldn't have done that," I said. Then I saw Gary's head watching me from the corner of the room, his lifeless, dull eyes frozen with fear. I shrieked and fell on the floor again. Then from across the street, I heard Karen letting out a huge scream, one that woke up the whole neighborhood. I understood why Fluffy did it. He wanted to protect me from the bad neighbor, but he left me with a bad situation on my hands, so I had to think fast. "Fluffy, is the rest of the body here in my house?" I asked. He barked twice. "Did you leave it in their house?" I said while pointed to Gary and Karen's house. Woof. Well, at least we got that figured out. I was afraid he would have eaten parts of him and get me in double trouble. He wasn't allowed to eat anything except on Wednesday, remember? I told him to stay put. I got some trash bags for Gary's head and arm and then stuffed them inside the freezer with the rest of his food. Figured, I don't know, maybe he'd eat them in a few hours. I then wiped the floor clean with bleach and made sure there wasn't any more blood in the house. Fluffy went to sleep like nothing happened. What a shit show. Then I heard the police sirens, and as I watched through the window, I saw them pull up in front of my neighbor's house. I didn't even notice it was morning. I just stood on the side of my bed petrified, all kinds of scenarios going through my head, jail for the rest of my life, death row, things like that. 11:30 in the morning. Time passed so fast while I stood there like a statue, still and unable to move. Frozen with fear. I heard a knock on the front door. 2 police officers came to ask me questions. They wanted to see if I know anything about Gary's killing. As soon as I started talking, Fluffy started barking. "Hey, Fluffy, keep it down, please. I'm trying to talk with these officers about the tragic accident that happened last night. Do you understand?" He barked once. "I'm trying to save both our asses here," I thought. "His wife told us that you got in a fight yesterday, Mr. Turner. She said that you were pretty aggressive towards them. Mind telling us why?" One of them asked. I looked at Agent Suck over standing on my porch and wished that Fluffy would come and rip their heads off. I wasn't aggressive, officers. It's just sometimes they took that black metal music too seriously and forget that other people are living in the neighborhood. It was very loud and I was trying to get some rest. I told them, whimpering. More questions followed, and when I checked the clock, it said 11:51. "If that's all, officers," I said, trying to make them leave so I can feed the dog. "Got somewhere to be, sport?" Agent Suck asked me, patronizingly. I shook my head and said that I just needed to feed my dog. He's very hungry. "Come on, Gary, leave the man be. We'll be in touch, Mr. Turner." "Thank you for your cooperation," Agent said. His name was Gary. I felt like I was in some sort of bad cosmic joke. What happened to your lip? Officer Suck or Gary asked me. You got your ass handed to you or something? I said that my dog accidentally scratched me while I was training him. It was no big deal. Then they both said goodbye, and I was getting really nervous and stressed because I didn't want to miss Fluffy's lunchtime. 11:54. I ran to the fridge, and I took the frozen meat and quickly placed them in the microwave, hit defrost for 3.5 minutes, and fed Fluffy. The spikes came out again from his spine, and I asked him if he liked the food, and he barked once and kept eating. Then I heard another knock. It was Officer Gary again, this time alone. His voice tone was a little bit changed. I know you killed him, Jonathan. I know you have his head and arm in the fridge, he said. No, 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 no. This wasn't happening. He pointed his gun at me. On the ground with your hands behind your back. You're under arrest, he said while I followed his instructions. I go to prison first. Then Satan would come after me for not taking care of his pet. Then Officer Gary started laughing. Oh man, you should see the look on your face right now. Get the hell up, man. I was just messing with you. I told you I like to bring the loss, he said, crying with laughter. Where's my Fluffy? Then the little creature came running from the kitchen and jumped on Officer Satan. Ugh. Thank you for taking care of me for him. My business here finished earlier than anticipated, and I am truly grateful for your absolute dedication towards the little fella here, Satan said. Mind if I take all the meats from your fridge, including I nodded. Jonathan, I told you that you'll get a reward for being nice to my fluffers, didn't I? He asked me. I nodded, and he told me that my mortgage has been paid off in its entirety. I'll be seeing you around, Johnny boy. I like you. You could work for me. Think about it, will you? He said. Come on, Fluffy. To the Batmobile, he finished. They hopped on in the car and started driving into the distance. Well, my piece of shit neighbor died. That meant no shitty black metal music unless Karen decided to go solo on the vocals. Maybe I'll get Fluffy again and teach her a lesson too if I get the chance. At least I'm debt-free, so I got that going for me, which is nice. Might as well pour myself a glass of Satan's whiskey now. Fourth story. There's been a demon haunting me for 17 years. This story is completely true. Read and enjoy. Let's start with a little bit of backstory. I am a 26-year-old female who has always had empathic abilities. I can sense energies and emotions that people and spirits give off. I can feel it as strongly as I feel my own emotions. I have been haunted for as long as I can remember, my first memory being at 9 years old. I woke up with cliché large black shadow standing at the end of my bed, reaching its long, growing fingers out towards me. When it attempted to grab me by the leg, I recoiled, quickly pulling my knees up to my chest. I remember feeling a burning pain on my right leg. I ignore it and just close my eyes tight and force myself to fall back asleep, so morning would come quick. I wake up the next morning relieved that last night's events were just a dream until I saw my leg with 4 long scratches down the length of it. From then on, I was hyper aware of everything around me. This is when I remember my empathic abilities starting. I'm sure they were there all along. This was just the pivotal moment that made me aware of it. I have had a million experiences since this, but I'm just going to tell you of one for now. The one that scares me the most. Fast forward 6 agonizing years later, my father and mother had divorced. When I was 11, my father got custody, remarried, and moved us into a new house, where my brother and sister had their own rooms on the main floor, and me and my 2 step-siblings had bedrooms in the semi-finished basement. Now, my father was extremely abusive. He was abusive in every way you can be. I know what you're probably thinking, and yes, even that way. That's a whole other story. So I was extremely depressed all of the time, and I always felt that dark spirit that attached itself to me in that apartment when I was 9, looming over me like a dark cloud, feeding on my pain, making it grow into absolute despair. I would hear stomping in the middle of the night above my room and running up and down the stairs over and over, amongst many other experiences. But I was the only one that heard these things, so I didn't bother mentioning it to anyone. As the black sheep, I didn't want to be seen weirder than I already was. About 6 months after we moved and my father installed light sensors into the hallway of the basement, You know, the ones that will turn the lights on when you walk by and shut off automatically after 3 minuets of no movement. Because we always forgot to turn that light off ourselves. So another year goes by and the activity I experienced in the house was constant, but all the same, so I was pretty used to it. One night, I was asleep in the basement, and at 3:03 a.m., I was woken up by lights scratching at my door, and in my sleepy haze, I thought it might be my little wiener dog try to get in until I started listening more closely and realized the scratching was up toward the top of the door. There was no way it was the dog. So I assumed my stepbrother was messing with me. There was no light coming under my door from the hallway, though. I assumed he manually shut it off to freak me out. So I yelled out, "Dan, stop, I'm trying to sleep." And the scratching gets harder and the doorknob starts jiggling and there's violent banging on the door all at the same time. At this point, I'm terrified. It just keeps getting louder and louder and faster with each "stop it," I yell out. So I swallow my fear, stand up slowly, and quietly walk to my door. It's still being banged on as I grab the handle. I take a deep breath and quickly open the door. The banging stops, and the automatic light turns on. Nothing was there. No one was there. There was nowhere for anyone to hide, and no way that sensor wouldn't have sensed them while they were banging on my door. I quickly close the door and don't sleep for the rest of the night. This happened at 3:03 a.m. without fail for a week straight, then just stopped. I never spoke of it to anyone. A few months later, I have a friend stay the night with me. I wake up, and she's laying next to me with her eyes wide open. I ask her what's wrong, and she tells me nothing, so I just go back to sleep. She goes home and instant messages me and says she's never staying at my house again and describes what happened and why she was awake. The same violent banging and scratching on the door had woke her, but not me. She never came over again. Fast forward another year. I'm 17 living with my mom now. My brother and sister come over for visitation once a week. My brother had moved into my bedroom in the basement at my father's house. We somehow got onto the subject of ghosts, so I tell them the story of what happened to me in that basement, since I don't care anymore whether they believe me or not. As I'm telling the story, my 16-year-old brother's eyes get big, and he starts sobbing, telling me it happens to him all the time. I have never seen him more scared in my entire life, as he was speaking about that with me, and he's definitely not the type to cry. He was genuinely terrified. Now, I'm 26 years old, and it's getting stronger. I now suffer from sleep paralysis regularly, and I don't think it's a coincidence. That evil thing comes to me in my sleep. I wake up paralyzed with it just standing over me. I fight as hard as I can to move or scream. All that moves are the tears that roll out of my eyes and down my face. I start to panic, and it makes me feel like I'm suffocating. Then I will wake up again, thinking I've woken up from the paralysis, only to find out I haven't, and it will happen over and over and over again like a song that skips midway and starts back at the beginning. You haven't felt fear until you've had sleep paralysis. It feels like being buried alive in a straitjacket, the claustrophobia of a tiny coffin closing in on you, the struggle to breathe under 6 feet of dirt, not to mention that suffocating anxiety of not able to move or do anything about what's happening to you. Sometimes it will just stand there at the end of my bed, or I will feel it shake the bed violently, or it will pull my blanket off and grip my ankles tightly like it's going to drag me somewhere. But almost all the time I hear it speaking my name over and over and over in a low, raspy, almost growling whisper. I know it's not me just dreaming, because when I do wake from it, I still feel it there, taunting me, waiting for the day it's strong enough to execute whatever it has planned for me. If you have any suggestions that might help me get rid of it, please let me know. I'm getting desperate. 5th story. My encounter with demonic forces. First post, first ever telling of my story. It has been over 20 years since these events have occurred. I did not feel I would ever tell my story until I came across this subreddit. I was reluctant to share what happened to me because I did not feel like arguing against doubt and disbelief and or defending my own sanity. Here I can tell you with less of these fears. This is what took place as I best remember. In the late 1980s, as a curious teen, I became fascinated with the occult. As a child growing up in a religious household, my first exposure of occult themes came from a Bible. I always strained to understand my beliefs concerning the teachings of the church, and especially struggled with my own faith in God. After learning that demons were former angels who had rebelled against God, were cast down to earth, and could interact with humans, I came to the conclusion that the best way to prove to myself that God existed was to see if demons existed. There was no internet back then to explore my questions and sate my curiosity. Knowledge of the occult was hard to come by and had to be searched for in libraries and bookstores. In time, I collected a small library of books about witchcraft and demonology. Looking back now, I realize how foolish I was. I didn't understand what I was getting myself into. Those books have since been destroyed after what happened to me. I began reading these books and actively trying to invite demons into my life. I read out loud long strings of demonic names out of the books. I would cast spells and draw symbols on my walls and on the floor. Nothing happened. I had a few strange dreams, but that wasn't proof of anything. Then one day I came across a paragraph that told me to get a full clove of garlic and stake it with a large iron nail to attract demonic power to a place. I did this and put the stake clove deep in my closet. The demons didn't come to me suddenly with a large fanfare. They came gradually, insidiously working their way into my life and psyche without me hardly noticing until they were ready. Then they pounced, and I was almost destroyed. I woke up more frequently with nightmares. I woke up sometimes listening intently because I could have sworn that what had awoken me was laughter or whispering. I passed these off as dreams. Sometime I woke up paralyzed for a few seconds. I passed this off as sleep paralysis. I woke up sometimes with all my sheets to the floor, far from the bed. I awoke some nights thinking it was my bed, just moving. I passed this off as restless sleep. Then one night, I woke up to watch my hand and arm shoot out from my side, grab the lamp on my night table, and throw it across the room with such force that I pulled my shoulder out and the lamp practically exploded against the opposite wall. I sat in the dark, cradling my arm, wondering how I could do such a thing out of dead sleep. A few nights later, I did the same thing with a new lamp with the same arm. I had to wear a sling to restrict movement of the shoulder. A few nights later, it happened one more time, but I didn't grab the lamp. I tore the sling right off my neck. I thought these things were very strange, but I still proceeded to invite the demons. I was still not convinced. I was a fool. I became irritable, and my family started to notice. I became lazy with my schoolwork, distant and withdrawn, and argumentative. My parents thought I might be on drugs. I was brought to a psychologist who tested me for them and diagnosed me with depression. I told no one what I was up to. Over time, the odd occurrences increased, but due to time and space and some embarrassment, I will leave some out. I will tell you that late one night, I awoke to the full moon shining on my face through a window. I debated telling you this part because it sounds so strange, but I began growling at the moon. I remember not thinking as myself. My thoughts were basic and primal. I began growling more ferociously until I was practically foaming at the mouth and snapping at the moon like a rabid animal. I eventually snapped out of this and wondering what the hell I was doing. I didn't know yet, but at this point the demons were ready to pounce. They felt they had weakened me enough and worn down the walls between worlds within my room enough to extract my soul from my body. These next recollections are the most vivid in my mind. One night, I awoke and felt very strange. I felt a jarring disjointedness. Then part of myself lifted out of my feet and then worked up my body until I was floating above the bed. It felt something like if you were to smoothly pull a piece of tape off of a flat surface. I was floating above my bed, and I was looking down on myself. I tried to move, but knew somehow that I would have had to learn how. After being amazed at what was happening, I then felt that something grabbed me by my feet or a lower part of myself and started to violently shake me like a rag doll. I felt like a streamer being whipped back and forth. I saw one side of the room, then the other flash before my eyes. Something was trying to tear me away from a connection I still had to my body lying on the bed. I was terrified, and I knew that if whatever was doing this to me succeeded, I would die. But the cord, I don't know what it was, tying me to my body was too strong. They cannot break it. They gave up and let go, and I floated lazily up to the ceiling. I remember distinctly my cheek resting lightly against the ceiling of my room. I set my eyes on a specific imperfection on the ceiling I had studied many times from below, but it was now inches from my face. I remember thinking how it looked different from there. Suddenly I was in the bed, looking up at the ceiling where I just was. I was taking deep breaths like I needed air. I still felt strange and was paralyzed with fear. I felt my chest getting heavy. I took a deep breath, but the feeling stayed. Now I felt as if I was being pushed down, but did not feel any pressure in a specific place. It was as if some invisible weight had been draped over my torso and was getting heavier. I remember thinking that this is just a dream. There's no way any of this is happening. Then I heard a sound I will never forget as long as I live. I heard the sound of the bed creaking. I was sinking into the bed, and the sound of the bed warping under the increasing weight was real. This was really happening. In a frenzy of fear, I burst out of the bed and ran out of the room and the house. I went to my sister's house who lived next door and woke her up to let me in. I was wide-eyed and hyperventilating. She eventually calmed me down and began asking questions. I did not tell her about what I had been doing and told her I saw a ghost. She laughed it off and told me to stay the night if I wanted to. I stayed, but I did not sleep again that night. By the next day, I know what I had to do. So I went back to my house and up to my room. I quickly went into the closet, grabbed the clove of garlic with the staked nail, which was now black, and took it outside. My parents' house is made of stone, and I found the largest open space of wall with no windows and threw the clove against the stone. I swear the thing exploded against the wall like I had thrown a grenade. There was nothing left. I never found a piece of that clove or the nail. I threw all occult materials, objects, and books I had into the wood stove and burned them. I cleaned the symbols off the walls and furniture. And I never slept in that room again. Nothing like what I have told you ever happened to me after. I think whatever demonic and human, it was had their one chance, but they failed and they never bothered me again. So do I now believe in God? Surprisingly, I'm still not sure that I do. But I do know that there are absolutely malicious entities in this world, and if you invite them into your life, they will gladly come in. Thanks a lot for watching the video. Till the end, subscribe to Horror in Detail for more videos. Drop your suggestions in comment section.